everybody, and welcome to Attendance Bias. I am your host, Brian Weinstein. Before we get started with today's episode, I just want to remind everyone that if you enjoy the podcast, you can show your support by leaving a rating and a review of it wherever you get your podcasts. You can also visit www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donate anything you can to keep the podcast going. Now, on to today's episode. When it comes to the 3.0 era, everyone has their favorite year or their favorite tour, but there is one part of 3.0 that doesn't get a lot of attention. 2010. 2010 has its share of great shows, and it mostly carries the reputation of Phish still getting back onto their feet. More specifically, the 2010 Fall Tour was played mostly in small venues that didn't get a lot of hype at the time. That may have made for some shows that were easy to brush off, but if you were there, it also made for an unforgettable experience. And in a nutshell, that is the story for today's guest, Jordan Gundeck, who is here to tell us about his experience on October 19th, 2010 at the Augusta Civic Center in Augusta, Maine. Between UMASS, Utica, and Augusta, this leg of the Fall 2010 tour felt like a throwback to like 1994, or maybe an even earlier time in Phish history, where the sound was fantastic no matter where you were in the venue, with no lines at the concessions or bathrooms, and no traffic getting in or getting out of the venue. It was a throwback. But mixed in was the band's confidence in their playing. The first set is made up of strong fan favorites, while the second set contains a Fuck Your Face 3-spot, Manteca, a killer mic groove, and much, much more. Speaking with Jordan, you can hear his excitement about the show from 16 years ago, as if he just saw it last night. But it's Jordan's story to tell. Let's join him to talk about the Voodoo Lounge tour from the Rolling Stones, the Whale Call, and whether or not the band overplayed Possum in 2010, as we discuss October 19th, 2010 at the Augusta Civic Center. Jordan, welcome to Attendance Bias. How are you doing today?
Brian, thank you so much. I am happy to be here. I've been looking forward to talking about one of my absolute favorite shows that I feel kind of is under the radar a little bit from that Fall 2010 tour. One of my favorite times, that's for sure.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to this, and we'll get into this part a little later. But I do feel that the Fall 2010 tour is underrated or underrepresented. Bottom line is it's not spoken about that much, at least on this podcast. The show that you chose is October 19th, 2010 at the Augusta Civic Center in Augusta, Maine. And again, not a lot going on in Fall 2010, at least from the attendance bias lens. So I'm glad you're here to share some light, to spread some light on that Fall tour and this show in particular. So let's get right to it, Jordan. Let's get to know you as a fan for the Attendance Bias Lightning Round.
Attendance Bias Lightning Round.
Jordan, when was your first Phish show, and what do you remember most about it?
So my first Phish show, I was a junior in 1997 when Phish came to the Bryce Jordan Center on December 9th. Of that year, and I think it was a Tuesday, if I remember correctly. And I remember having a little party at my apartment, going with some friends that, a couple friends that I know, it was their first show as well. Really not knowing what I was getting into. I had heard a bunch of tapes. I really, really loved the tapes from 92, from 94, 93 that I had, but didn't have a ton. But walking in and having the lights go down and just pretty much never seen a crowd dance as one, where it was like not, certain spots, it was just the entire crowd. To me, it looked like one big wave, just one giant wave. And people, they're all smiling. They're all happy. And I ran into my friend that pretty much got me into the band. And I had a brownie that we had made. And I was like, what do I do? He's like, just eat it. Nobody cares. Just eat it. I was like, okay. So we like, nobody even look at them. People don't, they don't, it's all good. So I was like, oh, that's how things go. So yeah, it was great. It was great. And I don't think I understood what was going on until I looked back at the tapes where my first song was the mic, and then it goes into Chalk Dust, and then Week Upon, and then Beauty of My Dreams, and all of that stuff. And then the second set was great, but it was just like a lot. It was a lot to take in, as I'm sure it was. But then I slowly started going back, and then, since then, it's been a bunch of shows, lots of good times. So yeah, it's good.
Well, what was your most recent show, and what did you think of it? Since your first Phish show was almost, right, in about a year and a half, going to be a 30-year anniversary.
Yeah,
we
did.
A little bit forward.
Yeah.
What's your most recent one?
I did July 24th, 2022 in Hartford with my good friend Mike. I live just south Boston. That summer to start the tour, they did Greatwood, which is always Greatwood. So next one I did was Hartford, and I had a blast. I forget what you call it, one of your most controversial opinions. I'll say this right now. I am good with summer shows unless they are indoors. I am not a fan of sweating. I'm not a fan of the heat, humid. I turn 50 soon, and, I used to be okay with standing there at shows looking down, and there's just a puddle of sweat. I'm good. So, but hey, give me 13 nights at MSG, and as I did, I will not miss one note. Yeah, but give me indoors, I'm good with that. Outdoors, yeah, I'm good. So
Right, I don't dislike outdoor shows particularly, but if given the choice, I would choose an indoor show almost every time, especially at places like Madison Square Garden, because
absolutely
industrial strength HVAC in the summer, I mean, there's no second best. It just is. And especially that you bring up Hartford. I remember when I went to see them, I think the date is August 14th, 2009, at the Meadows. That was an amazing show where they played.
That show. Oh my God.
Like Psycho Killer and Iculus and all, and like Colonel Foreman's.
You can't write a set list like that. You can't.
But it was the most humid show I think I've ever been to, either that or one in 2013. And it's just, I left with the worst headache of my life just due to it. And like you, as I get older, I'll take creature comforts any day.
I mean, I've seen, I would say, most of my shows in the Northeast, but the furthest west I've been is Cleveland, Star Lake. So not really, really west. I'm interested to definitely a bucket list for me is the Gorge, which I know you have been to, which is awesome. Compared to the Northeast in the summer, I would have to say the heat is a little different.
Yeah, it's not humid. It's dry heat.
Yeah, dry I could take where, I spent some time in Vegas. My sister used to live there. Vegas is fun, but I could definitely take the dry heat over humid, which is, I'm good with that.
Well, as you and I were trying to figure out which show you'd like to discuss, and you came up eventually with this one at the Augusta Civic Center, your big selling point, if I could put it that way, your biggest memory was how small it was. And you kept talking about how it's like a big high school gym, and we'll talk about those details. So I was wondering, at the time you were saying that it was probably the smallest venue you've seen Phish in. It turns out it isn't. So I have to ask, what is the smallest venue you've seen Phish perform if this was not it?
I went back and I checked the stats online, and to me, at that time, seemed the smallest one. But when I went back online in 2013, I saw the show at Glens Falls, 10/23/13, and it looked a little bigger than the show we are going to talk about, because although it was a floor, and a bowl, to me, that would give you more room. But it says that online, the Glens Falls Civic Center, it's 4,774, where it says online, the Augusta Civic Center is 5,099. I mean, they're kind of
Just that
same-ish.
much. Just that much.
Yeah. But the Glens Falls, have you been to Glens Falls? Did you ever see?
Not the Civic Center. I've been through the town, but I haven't seen a show there.
Oh, okay. And it's awesome.
Well, let's flip it then. So if we were just talking about smallest venues that you've been to, what are some of the largest venues you've been to specifically for Phish?
So specifically for Phish, I checked the internet and I saw I will call it the infamous BB King show at Brendan Byrne Arena, February 24th. And I think Wikipedia has it listed as 20,000. And then I would say, which you could go one of two ways, either Watkins Glen for Super Bowl or up in Maine. So, I mean, I looked online and they said, I guess the capacity or the attendance for Loring was 60,000. Watkins Glen, I guess they had somewhere around there. But when you go back, how many people do they really fit at these places? Right? I mean,
there's no hard number. There's no sign that says occupancy more than 40,000 is against the law. Like that doesn't exist.
As it is, going back to what we're going to talk, I love Maine. Just being up in Maine, I mean, once you get up to all the way up there, I mean, God, just like, you're like, oh my God, there's no light. It's all the stars. Yeah.
For the weekend of the IT Festival, I remember a lot, as much as I can, but one of my starkest memories has nothing to do with being inside the festival or the music. It was being in the 20-something hour traffic jam, waiting to get in and getting out of the car, going to the side of the road to urinate and just looking up and just seeing every single star in the galaxy. It seemed like I could reach out and grab one. And it just felt so peaceful. And that's when it hit me, what you were just describing.
Yeah.
Unlike anywhere else. Well, finally, the question that everybody answers on this podcast: what is the weirdest thing you've ever seen at a Phish show?
And one of the things, I was at New Year's 2010, and that was the first full New Year's Phish run that I had done. I did those Worcester and then the 3 MSG shows, and started the third set, the Meat Stick was on, and I was like, guys are so weird. What are they doing? And then I had great seats. And I turn around and I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, who do these people think they are? Fly in on some edible, it's a hot dog. They think they're like, they think this is funny. And it is. It's terrible. It is. The next thing was, I realized, I was like, this is so weird. And at the time, I was like, oh, it makes total sense. In 2017, I did 17 in 17. I did every single MSG show. And I want to thank again, my brother, Charlie, at the time, lived on 36th and Park. So I stayed at his house 3 weeks. And he's younger at the time. He was probably like 26, 27. I brought him to some shows too before those. So he ended up maybe going to 2 or 3 shows, loved them. My bed, which is this couch, to my seat, it was a 16-minute walk every day, which is, it was great. So, but the third night, the New Year's, the second set, I think it was like Fuego, closed with M, Golgi, and I don't really smoke pot much. So this gentleman next to me, he was there with his, I guess, girlfriend at the time, same seats right next to me all 4 nights. And he was like, here, you want some? I was like, no, I'm good. But the second set, I was like, why not? So I took, like a hit or two, and that compared to where I was beforehand, adding that, it was like, okay, I need just some air. So I feel very comfortable at MSG. I feel like I know my way around pretty well. So where I was, I walked up to the concourse, and I'm like, perfect. And I just start walking around in circles. Take 10 minutes just to walk around because you could hear and you see all the sights. It's great. There's like 20 people doing the exact same thing. And I was like, I ran into a friend and I was like, hey, I stopped him when I felt I was better. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to go in. And then as soon as they do, they start the end. And I'm like, oh my God, like fine. And so I ran in and I was good. Yeah. Yeah. But it was weird to be like, oh my gosh, all these people are doing the exact same thing as I am.
When was this show played?
So we mentioned at the very top of our conversation that the 2010 Fall Tour, and I might argue 2010 in general, is a little bit underspoken, underrepresented. People don't really think of 2010 when you talk about top years of 3.0 or even what do you remember from 2010. Some people have their memories. A lot of people just say, it was a good year and move it on like that. So I'd like to zoom in a little bit on that tour, the 2010 Fall Tour, and what made it special. And then maybe we could zoom out a little and talk about the year as a whole. So when I looked it up in memory, the 2010 Fall Tour was made up of 15 shows. So again, not a huge tour. The tour started at Zilker Park in Austin. Really, it was just Austin city limits is how it was listed. They played their only trio of shows at the First Bank Center in Broomfield, Colorado. I was talking to someone recently about those shows, which are kind of lost in the lore of Phish special shows in Colorado. The First Bank Center doesn't get a lot of talk. They were kind of on their search for their annual Colorado stop. They would settle on Dick's Sporting Goods the next following year, the soccer field, obviously. Then the tour moved east for a pair of shows at North Charleston. After about 2 days off, the band traveled far north. I checked. It's just about 1,100 miles or nearly a 17-hour drive to today's show at the Augusta Civic Center on October 19th. And then after Augusta, this is the show that I remember being really excited about at the time. They played the Utica show in, of course, Utica, New York. And then they ran down the East Coast with a show at the Providence Civic Center, 2 shows at UMASS Amherst, and the show of the year, and this is in my opinion only, of course, at the Manchester, New Hampshire SNHU, now it's called, the SNHU Arena. The tour would close with a 3-night run at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, where the band would play the craziest show, maybe, that I've ever seen in terms of covers and unexpectedness, the crazy Led Zeppelin Tease Fest, the 10:30 show. And then they would close the tour with the Halloween show the next night, where they covered Waiting for Columbus, the Little Feat live album. I see 2010 as kind of an up and down year. They had their first year of 3.0 already under their belts in 2009. And everyone was so excited that they kind of couldn't step wrong in 2009, that whenever you went to go see Phish that year, they were perfect because even though they didn't jam really much and the set lists had sets of like 19 songs each, it was like more of a recital year. 2009 was, as they were kind of getting their feet wet again. Everyone was just so psyched. The hype was overwhelming. So when 2010 rolled around, it was, okay, now let's get back to being Phish, musically and improvisationally speaking. They rarely, in my opinion, in 2010, seemed to be able to fully relax and to let jams organically grow while playing. And Trey especially seemed very reliant on his whammy pedal, which on the blooming Phish online message board community became known as the whale call, derisively. It's not exactly a straight line, but it seemed to me like there was a run at the Greek Theater in Berkeley, California in August that kind of brought the band to a new level of playing. Trey was also playing the new Osidoc guitar. And so he could give the whammy a break every now and again and kind of let the sound develop rather than trying to like force the jam for the second half of the year during this fall tour. There's also, as we're going to encounter when we review today's show, some parts where when Trey solos against the band vamping in the background where he kind of moves into the minor key while the rest of the band is playing in a major key. And it's this weird dissonance that doesn't quite fit. But by the end of the year, as you were telling your story about New Year's Eve 2010, that's one of the best New Year's shows of 3.0 forward. That's kind of where I see 2010 as kind of a stepping stone as opposed to a pivotal year in 3.0. What was your experience in 2010 as a whole?
I had an absolute blast. They announced the fall tour, and living right outside of Boston, I saw the dates and I was like, oh, wow, there were like 6 shows that I could feasibly sleep in my own bed. And then I look and the majority of the venues were tiny. Augusta, tiny. Utica, tiny. Day Off, and then I think Providence, which, I mean, they played 94, 99, tiny-ish places. Then they went to UMASS for the first time since 95, which is, a tiny place. And New Hampshire, which I went to, which was great, down to AC, and I skipped those because working, stuff like that. And for them to play, which seemed like up here at least, which is where they're from, all these tiny or smaller places. MSG, the place in by UNH is probably two-thirds the size, 13,000 maybe, where, MSG 19,000. I mean, granted, this is by UNH, and then MSG is in New York, so there's a bigger fan base, but it's not that far. But with all these smaller places, so I was really excited to be like, okay, my one friend went to UMass, and my friend Mike, him and I go to a ton of shows. He went to UMass, and it was nice that he drove, and he knows UMass well, knew where to park, and place to get a bite to eat and drink, so it's easy. But I looked at these and I was like, wow, all these shows are kind of close. Fall up here is perfect, nice and cool-ish. All smaller spots, which was definitely made me gravitate and excited to see them for these bunch of shows.
Set 1.
All right, well, let's dive into it. And as we go through this show, tell me what the turning point was, where of all the different shows that you've seen, whatever it is, 107, 108, as it comes through, let me know and let the listeners know why it is you picked it, what brings out the attendance bias. But let's start off with the first set opener, probably the best first set opener, maybe the most common. I'll see if I can find a stat to check that one out. They open with Chalk This Torture, which the first thing I noticed was the quality recording. The first thing you said to me off mic was how small this venue is. So this audience recording, I thought it sounded almost like a soundboard. And when I started listening, the first thing I noticed was Mike. Especially playful. He's especially prominent to the point when I was listening to the show in my car, the sides of my car started rattling like I was listening to, I don't know, mid-90s hip-hop and rap. Like really. And there's just a little bit of experimentation at a little bit after 4 minutes. Nothing crazy, but it is fun interplay between the guitar and the bass. It's a perfunctory version, but a good way to get things started.
Walking into this place, first of all, I mean, it is, from what I found out, it is where they play the high school state basketball championships. I mean, you walk in and it is a big high school gym, pretty much. And there's like really nothing behind the stage. It's just like a big box, nothing at the end, maybe there might be a tiny walkway, but the side, it's like the floor and then the side. And then on the side, there may be 12 rows. That's it. I don't think I was just on the floor because it was GA. The whole place was GA and you could go where you wanted and nobody was going to stop you. It was, I found a place towards the back where the Capers was, where I happened to meet with a bunch of Penn State friends who had been seeing shows for years. I mean, I got into a lot, and my friend from Biscuit Tour, who I've seen a ton of them, used to be their sound guy. He had 8 extras for the show and couldn't give them away. It was like, if you were up there, you wanted to get in, you would have got in. There would have been no way to not get in. People were just so happy to be there, and it's so relaxed. It was so relaxed. I don't even know if there was like a pat down at the door. I remember people maybe even walking in with our beers. It was just like, wow. It was just like, okay. And there was no problems. It was great. It was great. But yeah, I remember the band was very excited to be there, and it was definitely kind of the most out of the way show, being on a Tuesday up in Maine. And yeah, it was great, but you could feel that they were excited to be there, and the crowd was pumped out go well. So I think, Chalk Dust is, I think, probably my favorite way to start.
And that makes sense because when they follow it up with Back on the Train, in my notes, I wrote that it hits a casual peak at about 5.5 minutes with a little bit extra mustard from Page, but it sounds casual and tight at the same time, right? No one's going to put this Back on the Train on like best of tour mix, at least unless you were there, the attendance bias for that reason. But if you were just objectively, it's a good version of the song. It's very typical, but they feel so relaxed and so calm. And like you said, that people were not crammed in, but it was crowded and people were so excited and happy to be there. It was like, it's the Phish ethos in a way. It's like, we are all here for the same reason and we made it here. So let's enjoy it while we have these 3 hours together.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was great. I mean, it was nice. You listen back. I listened back and was it the best version? No, of course not. Was it a 1400 from Japan? Oh no, it was not. But it was great. It was straight to the point, and you could tell they were there to have fun. Which is, I mean, I am in for Phish to have fun. That is for sure, because when they have fun, we have fun.
Of course. And they follow that up with Torn and Frayed. And I love this song. I wish they would play it more often. I checked the stats. They played it up to this point, the times of this recording, 10 times. So if you've heard it, you've heard a rarity, a good one. So there aren't exactly flawless harmonies, but that's Phish. That's the part of the charm of it. And considering all of their cover albums that they've done, especially for Halloween, I think Exile doesn't really get its due. I mean, they played Loving Cup before they ever covered Exile on Main Street. But this song in particular kind of represents the band in 2009, especially, if you listen to the lyrics, like now I'm talking about 2010 all the way through today. They're amazing. They're sober, but they've been through hell. So they're a little dinged up, right? They're not a flawless band that switched out members and everyone is fresh on the road. Right? They're torn and frayed. Like, everything's a little bit, not everything is bright and shiny anymore. And listening to it musically, Page is the one carrying it vocally. Trey gets a little solo at about 3.5 minutes. And this is where it really hit me that the crowd is all amped up. I re-listened to this track a number of times as I prepared to speak with you today.
No, it's great. And I was lucky enough in living in North Jersey. I think it was the Voodoo Lounge tour. My parents taking my brother and I to see the Stones at Giant Stadium. I think it was like the summer of '94, and I remember, I think it was 17, and I remember, I mean, that was the biggest rock show I've seen. I mean, I don't know who puts on a bigger rock show than the Rolling Stones. I mean, they've been doing it. They're pros, but I mean, the shows they put on are just massive. And we had great seats.
That's fabulous. So after Torn and Frayed, they get back to originals. They play Bathtub Gin, which is standard through the solo. And this is really where it starts expanding a little bit. The improvisation goes. Trey starts playing around with the lead melody, but Mike, I mean, this is going to be a recurring theme throughout this conversation. It's the bass that keeps catching my ear. Like he keeps jumping between high and low. He's not necessarily mirroring Trey's parts, but he's kind of complementing the guitar lines. And at 7.5 minutes, this is where 2010 comes out to me. When I think 2010 comes out, anyone listening, if you're wondering what it sounded like to be on tour, if you're a newer fan than 2010, to me, 7.5 minutes of this Bathtub Gin is what 2010 meant. Like the band sounds ready to explode, but Trey doesn't hit the peak. Instead, Mike takes over and they go into this weird minor key jam that I thought could have come from Carini instead.
And for me, like looking back, like if I would to write a set list for a show, it would be all these, pretty much 90% of these songs. These are just some of my favorite songs, but I mean, the sound in there was so good, and you could tell if they had turned Mike up, or just the sound in the room fitted his sound, his bass at that time. But it was just, it was hot. It was good. And the fact too, going back, as small as the place was, we all had so much room. Like I could go like this and spin and hit nobody. And I look, and like my friends are there, and my friends are there, and I'm like, this is. And you look and you're like, oh, wow, this is, it was great.
After Bathtub Gin, Trey introduces that the next song, these lyrics were written by, quote, a Maine resident, John Fishman, and they play Gumbo, of course. As we all know, that Fishman lives in Maine, and he's a selectman, I think, right? Or was. I don't know if he still holds it, that office of his town. And so they play Gumbo at like a good brisk clip. The big knock on Phish in 3.0 is that they were playing a lot slower than they used to, which makes sense. But to me, that didn't come through in Gumbo. There's a fun piano solo, as there always is. But to me, it's a good gumbo, but it's just kind of moving the chains, like nothing extraordinary, nothing bad. It's, if you like this song, great. If you don't, good time to go to the bathroom and get a beer.
Yeah, there were no lines. Think about there were no lines. Nobody, there's like no lines. Bathrooms, you walk right in. Beer, there's no lines. It's awesome. It's awesome. And I think they were even like giving out popcorn. You know, it's like here, there's the popcorn machine giving out popcorn, something like that. So yeah, no, it's great. But I mean, who doesn't like gumbo in the first set, right? I mean, who's going to complain? Nobody. You're going to go to the bathroom if you don't like, and come right back. So yeah.
And so, speaking of songs that everyone's got to like, the next one is Divided Sky. And my first thought was excellent flow. I know we've said it, but excellent flow, excellent set list choice so far. This song is being played at a faster tempo, again, than I would expect for the time period. But I have to imagine that the pause at about 6 minutes, we all know the Divided Sky pause, it must have been insane in a venue this small. It's self-perpetuating. The louder it gets, the more people cheer, and so on and so forth. But I could also hear the opposite, how quiet everyone gets when the music resumes. It's like silent.
It was, I mean, occasionally, I love the unknown at Phish. I love it when they go into something and start something and you're like, what are they going to do? Divided Sky is kind of in that batch where it never really changes. And at times I'm like, okay, this is the bathroom song for me, blah, 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 But then throughout the song, I'm like, wow, this is why I got into this band. This is one of the songs that allowed me to get into this band, and made me get into this band. And it was great. And, you can hear when they have the quiet part, how it's just everybody is just, there are not a lot of, as they say, chompers at this show. So no, like people there drinking beer, lots of beer just to have a good time. Or people that were really excited. And from what I saw, like fans, like actual fans. Yeah, one thing that I did pick out where I think the timing's right, after they break in from the quiet part at like 49, right by the capers and the mic, you could hear some guy just go, some girl just go, I was like, yeah, it is sweet. That was sweet.
And they segue into Jesus Just Left Chicago, which is another favorite cover of mine. It reminded me of Torn and Frayed at the beginning of the set. And Phish, in my opinion, you kind of have this paradox, right? That the rarities are the ones you want to hear, but if they play them too often, they cease to become rarities. But Jesus Left Chicago is one of those songs for me. And I thought that on Divided Sky, especially toward the end, Page kind of had the hot hand. So they kind of gave him the next one with Jesus Left Chicago. Of the 3 songs on the show that are on the Phish.net jam charts, this is one of them, which I thought was interesting because it's just a straight blues arrangement. It's nothing out of control. But when you hear it, it's very driven. Trey's turn in his guitar solo, it could be 1994 or 1997. Very rocking, professional stuff.
And yeah, that as I said, it had a very that like week, very it's old school. You're in the Northeast in the fall, and all these venues were so tiny. Anyone that wanted to get in could get in. You had no problem. It felt to me, although my first show was in '97, it felt like what '94 must have been like. A lot of people at these tinier places where you're never gonna see them play. They're never gonna play at this place again. They're never, as far as I would guess, they never play at UMASS again, and it's too small for them. But yeah, it was just to each their own. But just the fact that the band was playing it, great. You could tell they were gonna change things up, do a lot of different things. If I had to choose like a bluesy song, it would probably be On Your Way Down, which I got once, and which I know they definitely don't play a ton, but I'll take this too for sure. So yeah, back at that time, it was great.
And they followed up with another cover song. Lots of covers in this first set. Nellie Kane, which I just wrote, Phish Bluegrass Interlude. If you know it, you like it or you don't, but it's only going to be about 2 minutes and 40 seconds anyway, no matter what.
Yeah, but bluegrass should be like Phish thick grass, as they call it. It's some of my like favorite stuff. I know they don't do it that much. Old Home Place is my favorite bluegrass-ish song that they do, but yeah, it was great. And like the set list placement, it had a good flow. The set had a good flow.
Definitely blues to bluegrass. And then 46 Days, which is like earth-shaking arena rock. Yeah. And I imagine that the answer is yes. But one of my thoughts when I was listening is I hope the sound was as crisp in the building as it is on this recording, because the band can't take a wrong step.
There wasn't bad sound anywhere. Anywhere you walked, even in like the corners of the top. Granted, they weren't very big, but like sound didn't have anywhere where to go. It just sounded great. Yeah. It was not, it was like anywhere you went, it wasn't too loud. It was very easy on the ear, we'll say. And it was just very comfortable wherever you were in the place. It was great.
And we're already at the set closer, which is Possum. I remember it being a joke in 2009 and 2010 that the band was almost over-reliant on Possum, that they played it so many times that it eventually elicited groans and laughs from the crowd. So I looked at the statistics, and we might have been, I include myself in this, we might have been a little bit overzealous, overreacting a bit, because it was played 17 times in 2010. And this was the 13th time out of those 17. So 17 times isn't like insane. It's more of just like being a regular part of the rotation. I always think back to people who complain about, they play this song too often. Too many repeats has become a really go-to complaint in recent years. And it's like, have you ever looked at set lists from 1993 or 1994? It's all the same, night to night.
All the same, in different orders, you know?
So maybe we were a little bit much, but this is a very Trey and Paige taking turns show. Like a really strong first set, even if very little actually stood out in terms of improvisation or being different. But it's great for people who just like solid versions of fan favorite songs. You're there for a good time, you're going to have it.
Fan favorite, that's what the show is, at least for me. It's great. And if there is a fan base that is critical of the band, this has the most critical fan base in music, I think. And it's like, because we've seen it, we've experienced it, whatever it is. That's why we go, I think, because we've experienced this thing that you don't really, with every, add whatever you do, and substance, and then music, and then crowd, and location, and you could, you can't experience experience what it is. But that's why we're critical, because we know and we see what this band could do. And that's why people complain. Pop them. Love it. Love it. Give it to me. I love it. Grandkid, do I want to hear it? 6 straight shows? No. Will I be pissed? No.
Right. Two things can be true.
Absolutely. For sure.
Hi, everybody. Brian here to welcome you to the set break of today's episode of Attendance Bias. First, thank you for listening. And second, just a quick reminder to tell you that even though Attendance Bias comes to you for free, it does take a lot of work and it does take quite a bit of money to keep the lights on here at production. So I just wanted to ask a small favor if you could support the podcast in any number of the following ways. If you could leave a review or a rating of it on whichever podcast app you use. If you could spread the word, telling a friend or someone you think may be interested in it about it. Or probably the most concrete way is to go to www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donate however much you can financially to help with the continuing costs of Attendance Bias. So thank you again so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the second half of today's episode.
Set 2.
Now, the second set is another story. If the first set was mostly fan favorite songs and solid versions of them, the second set starts really off kilter in, I think, the best way possible. It starts opening with Fuck Your Face, which made a comeback earlier in the summer on July 2nd in Charlotte, which, by the way, for those of you keeping score at home, the gap was 1,424 shows. So that kind of blew the door wide open that anything could be played at any time. The rules don't matter. The rules are not really rules. But that means by this time, 3 months later in October, that Fuck Your Face was somewhere in the ether. It can be played. So it was played again at Alpine Valley at the end of the summer. So it wasn't completely out of left field. But just the same, for those of us who have been into the band for so long and listened to all the tapes, there were decades when this song was not on the table. So for guys like us, it's kind of the same way with Destiny Unbound. We know it's possible now, but it's still a thrill. There's a part of our hearts and our brains maybe where when it's played, it's, oh my God, there was a time where I never could have heard this. So it kind of brings that thrill out and it sets the idea and reminds us anything is still possible.
Yeah, that is the truth. But when you think about this, Destiny Unbound, I think, was played in 91.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was played in 2003, 12 years. So if I was correct, Fuck Your Face was actually played in 1987 and in 2010. So that is 23 years, almost double the length that Destiny was played, almost double the length. Granted, was played once compared to Destiny. It seemed like it was played from 91 to 80, whenever they first started playing it. 86 was played regularly, but this was always something I remember looking at set lists and being like, what the hell is this song? And I listened to it and I was like, okay, it's weird. And then when they brought it back, I think it, Raleigh, Charlotte in North Carolina somewhere, I was like, wow. And I listened to it and I was like, they played it. And then Alpine, they played it again. And going back, my friend Mike, that I stay with when I go to SPAC, him and I had for years. We would talk about Fuck Your Face, and then when they brought it back in Charlotte that summer, I was like, now who's this band that, just making a joke? Who's they could write weird songs like this? Like, what are they doing? They play it once, bring it back 23 years later. Why not? And then I'm like, I'm never going to hear, and then they open up this song in the middle of nowhere, literally. And I'm like, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they play this here? And it was like, just like a check mark. Be like, okay, I never thought, but here it is. I'll take it. And then they bust into mics. I'm like, well, how else? Why not go into mics? Sure.
Well, and to be fair, all three of the songs we just mentioned, Destiny Unbound, Fuck Your Face, and then as you just said, Mike's song plays after Fuck Your Face, are all written by Mike Gordon.
Yeah.
They're all Mike songs, including Mike's song.
Yeah.
And so Fuck Your Face kind of ends early and the band breaks out the opening of Mike's. I'm like, what a move. And the crowd just goes insane. You could hear it
crazy.
deservedly. And right when the jam begins at about 3 minutes of Mike's song, there's immediately Fuck Your Face teases. But they keep playing the Mike's jam.
Who's going to stop them? Play as much as you want. Play as much as you want. Do it. Yeah, it was great. It was great. You could tell they were so relaxed on stage. So like we're gonna. It doesn't matter what at least to us it felt that it didn't matter. It was like we were there, suck it all in, and they felt relaxed, very relaxed. That they were not going to be. They just let it flow. Just let it flow was great. Yeah. And Mike's was good. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, this is a good version of Mike's song. And this is, I thought again, when I was listening, that around 5.5 minutes after some little dissonance or minor key guitar soloing, then it reaches peak. because this is what I remember. Like I said earlier in the recording of 2010 is Trey is playing in a minor key while the rest of the band is playing major key rock. This is an example of it, but he always comes back and then they reach this amazing rock and roll peak where they're kind of taking side streets to get to the main highway in 2010 is the way I thought of it. And he kind of forced a segue back into Fuck Your Face at the very end of Mike's song.
I mean, yeah, as I said, I mean, they were having fun. I mean, I'll say 3 times. I heard it three times in 8 minutes.
Yeah,
When had they ever played that song 3 times in 8 minutes aside in the band room? Maybe somewhere. They hadn't played that song 3 times in 23 years, let alone to hear it in 8 minutes. Yeah. It was just like, oh my, it was like, what are they? It was great. I was like, oh my gosh, the more the better. We were just all in. We were all in. It was wonderful.
And then a completely opposite mood. They go from Fuck Your Face into Light, right? The most upkey, inspiring song from the weirdest song from their early career. This is the second song, Light is, from the show that's on the jam charts. They start with some minor key jamming again. And I want to get your opinion. No one's going to know. Is this intentional? Do you think Trey is trying to get the rest of the band to meet him in a minor key? Or is he purposely going like against harmonics of the song to make it sound weird? Like it sounds like Mike joins in about a minute later, but something just doesn't sound right to my ears. Like Trey is trying to fit a puzzle piece into a space where it just doesn't fit. I know it's been 16 years, but I still feel that way since it's been played.
They are, I mean, they're 4 people and they each have their own, as much as one as they can be. They're all very separate people. And I think that being granted only back for less than 18 months, something like that, they were still trying to figure stuff out. Maybe Trey just being in general somewhat the leader of the band. I think maybe he was trying to pull the band somewhere, but they don't have to follow Trey at all times.
Yeah, good point.
Sometimes out of like meth is where you get the best stuff. Like out of noise comes like unreal type of music that they make. Yeah, so I mean, at the time I know you love Light. Light is your absolute favorite song. You're so into it. You love the words, but I know you like the jam, which is good. I am a fan of, and knowing like where the song came from. I think, did Tom Marshall help Trey write it, or was that Trey?
I think so. I'll fact check that one, but I think so.
Okay, so coming from, I mean, we all know where Trey was for those 3, 4, 5 years, and there's these songs to come out of whatever he went through. I mean, some of them are just like you listen to them and like, it's just like, you're like, I try to get her kind of, you see where he comes from. But yeah, I am a fan. And at that time, you could tell that they were kind of going to let it go a little bit. So I know the track listing, it wasn't super long, but it was still one of the bigger jams in that set.
one of my favorites. And toward the end, it drops out into very like mushy sort of abstract sound. I thought they were going to go into What's the Use, but they go into a song that kind of has the same vibe, which is 20 years later. So it still fits that What's the Use, slow, downbeat. I guess the word I'm looking for also is cerebral, kind of nothingness, similar, but not the same. Based on this audience recording, it sounds like the crowd goes very quiet. If not entirely silent. It's kind of a plodding version with a really good psychedelic guitar solo, then moves to an actual groove at about 7.5 minutes. It sounds like it would be low key, and maybe people on certain substances would have to sit down for it or really like it. It's Dark Fish.
I did not sit down, but I was good.
Well, do you tend to like Dark Fish, capital D, capital P in this case?
Yeah, I do like when Phish gets on the dark side, goes to that side. Granted, 20 years later, not one of my favorite songs. So I do remember actually, I think, running to the bathroom for this, but yet it was probably like a 1.5 minute bathroom break, 2-minute bathroom break. You got to run out, no lines, and run right back in and get back into the swing of thing. And I was like, okay, this is fine. But I mean, to each their own. But I do remember for stuff like this, the crowd was very quiet. You were just very quiet and allowed the band to produce what they were making on a stage. So
I used this word already, but there's like mushy music and soundscapes transitioned into 20 years later. The next song kind of transitions out of 20 years later because it's Fast Enough for You, which is a smooth transition. It's one of their best ballads. I heard it not being there, listening years after the fact. It's a nice uplift from the darkness of 20 years later. Totally. I thought so, with a beautiful piano solo as the cherry on top.
Yeah, no, it was good. I'm definitely, as this is another one I'm not a giant fan of, but ballad wise, this works for me. But yeah, it was definitely, they brought us up from where we were in the song beforehand.
And they got to close out the whole Mike's group. I forgot, to be honest, that Mike's song started this whole segment off. They go right into Weekapaug groove. And I don't know how often they've gone from Fast Enough for You into Weekapaug. So that is something unique. Fishman, I realized at this point when I was listening that I barely mentioned him at all. So if anything's going to call your attention to the drums, it's Weekapaug groove.
Selectman John Fishman.
That's right. Resident of Maine.
Yeah.
He's playing some really impressive fills, but for the most part, he's just keeping down the beat. The whole band does eventually find a rhythm, which is unusual for this show, because I love that they're playing as a unit, but it only lasts for a very short amount of time before we get the usual Weekapaug groove guitar fireworks. It's a strong version, but again, I used this word earlier to describe, I think it was Back on the Train, it's like perfunctory. It's good, but it is what it is. And after 7 minutes, you got your Weekapaug out.
I remember this and them playing, you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. It seems early to be the end of the set. And I think I looked at my watch and I was like, oh my God, there's plenty of time left. What else are they going to give us? But no, I think it was like lots of, them just being rock stars and playing just a big version. And, yeah, I mean, a great way to end that Mike's groove there. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, that was well said when you said a lot of this show is that just being rock stars, because that's
be rock
what it
stars,
is.
which they are.
Right, right. They've earned it.
Yeah, have they ever? I enjoy it.
They kind of transition next with Halley's Comet, which in the beginning of 3.0 especially is just a straight 5.5-minute version of this song that goes through the composed section with just a short guitar solo. Very similar to Tube, actually. The two of those songs I've grouped together from like 2009 to 2015, basically. And Halley's Comet is what you would expect it to be of the time and slammed right into Free, where Mike just destroys the whole room. Because when I was playing this in my car, I had to take the volume and turn it down because it was making my doors rattle too much.
Right, yeah, but no, I mean, Hanley's out of that was great, and I mean that to me is like a happy douchey song, which I love. Granted, they didn't really extend it out that much, but I mean, at least at the time, what they really didn't do. Do we love to hear them just go with it? Yes, but I mean, it's great, and it's I think one of their oldest, one of their older songs. I mean, I know Richard Wright, Nancy Taub, I think wrote that song.
That and I didn't know.
Yeah. I think they performed that in like 86, 87, something wild like that. Mike is my favorite in the band. If I do have to say, he is my man crush. As weird as he is, but the things that guy does with that bass is just wild. And especially when he's allowed to shine, he's turned up a little bit, especially in that room, you could stand there and you could feel, literally feel the bass. That was awesome. I love being able to feel it. Trey, I like to hear them all. I like the Trey, but Mike, you could physically feel it. The Free, I remember, was short, straight to the point, and I remember looking at it, and it just was a giant dance party throughout the whole place. People were just getting down by that point. It was just one big one like, not big, but like a little wave where all the crowd was one. It was awesome. People just freaking out. It was great. Yeah, blast.
And you could hear it. It comes through
Mm-hmm.
on the recording. And speaking of the recording, when they
Mm-hmm.
play Harry Hood next, it sounds like it could be the end of the set. I know that isn't true, but just by the
Mm-hmm.
good flow of the set, this is where I would
Mm-hmm.
expect it. If I were
Mm-hmm.
there, I'd say, all right, I guess it's going to be a shorter show or a shorter set than
Mm-hmm.
usual. What I
Mm-hmm.
loved about it is this watery, delicate, starry effect that we're all familiar
Mm-hmm.
with when we hear the beginning of the jam of Harry Hood, the
Mm-hmm.
do 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 do
Mm-hmm.
do. The playing is beautiful and it sounds very at home in an outdoor venue. Talking about our conversation at the beginning of this podcast episode, it sounds like it could have been played at the Gorge, this version
Mm-hmm.
of Harry Hood. It had to be noticed by the band how
Mm-hmm.
special and easy it was to hear every note in this venue in Augusta. So the band there's this version or this point at about 8.5 minutes where the band is almost entirely silent, except for,
Mm-hmm.
I think, Trey, it might be Paige, leads this melody that
Mm-hmm.
sounds like it could have been at the Gorge. It's just so beautiful. And then at
Mhm.
12 minutes, it sure sounds like it could be the end of the set, but you hear Trey vaguely, because it's so
Mhm.
quiet and the sound is so good, count out the 1, 2, 3 into
Mhm.
Golgi
Golden.
apparatus. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, the hood was great. And it was like big songs like that. To me, that's like a big song. It was great because everybody in the room just allowed them to do what they want to do. And it was like, we were, at least for me and my friends in the back, we were like, no talking, quiet, and just allow them to do what they were going to do. And you can see the way they were talking. I mean, not talking, but back and forth on a stage. It was just, yeah, it was great. And Trey was allowed to, and with the beautiful line that he came in with, it was great. And then just to bust right into, I saw you with a ticket stub in your hand. Yeah, it was good. And that kind of felt like we were in, as they say, the fourth quarter. But yeah, it felt like things were going to slowly start to come to an end, but they still had a lot more stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah, because the set closes next with A Day in the Life, which is
Mm-hmm.
really squeezing all the music out of the set, like lots of fan
Mhm.
favorites, a lot of covers, and
Mhm.
the most sing-along Beatles cover that they do. And it
Mhm.
sounds on point. I know the big buildup that kind of glues the two sections of this song together must have been
Mhm.
crazy in this small venue. And it's just perfect. I mean, they played A Day in the Life a lot, especially in 1995 and moving forward into 96. And then it kind of petered out toward the end of 1.0 and very rarely, if at all, played in 2.0. So I think I'm glad they brought this one back, I'll say,
Mhm.
because everyone loves it.
I mean, truly, when you look at it, without that band, those four guys, where would Phish be? right? Would Phish even be a band? Because who didn't grow up and being like, I want to be like these guys? I mean, they don't play, but they still are, I think, the biggest band in the world. Still. And they don't even play. They haven't played for 60 years, 50 some odd years. And like their music is timeless. You know, it's amazing. It's just amazing to see. But like this song, I mean, what a way to end it. How can you not like that? That as you could tell that this was it, and the encore was going to come up. So yeah, good way to end. Although this is not the end.
Right. They go off stage. That closes the set, but not the show. So they go off stage, they come back on, and to open an encore, they play Reba. Imagine like hearing the opening notes of Reba for an encore. You don't have to imagine. I'm just saying that was my reaction listening to it right after that awesome show. And this is the third and final song on the Jam charts. And I only occasionally do this, but I will quote the Jam charts because I think it's very well-written description. It says, awesome Reba. Trey works atop a really cool beat, which at times seems to stop and then start, a special sort of space carved by Mike's bass. Excellent effects work to handle the jam. To enhance the jam as the band plays exceptionally well as one. Trey nudges the band into a spacey and protracted legroom, which the band explores with aplomb. Before Phish breaks for Manteca, super guitar brings this version to a close. And I have my own notes, but I think that really does cover it for me, with the crab in my shoe mouth, especially.
Yeah. But like, first of all, I want to say when I first started listening to this band, this was like one of my last thank yous, my sophomore roommate at Penn State, Eric, got me into this band. He was the first one to say, have you ever heard of this band named Phish? And I remember driving around with him, and I think it was a Volkswagen Jetta gray in like 96. He played, I will say, Junta, the tape. Bowie was one of the first songs that he played for me. I was like, what is going on? And from then it was just like, he was the one that got me into this band back in 96, like 30 years. Reba was probably the song I really latched onto. And since then, I have named my cars Reba. So I had Reba 1, 2, 3. I think I'm now on Reba 6 since 1996. So they all give me the love that this song does. And just think encore. It's like, I think it had been like since sometime in 1990 that they had encored with it, which is 20 years. And then just to hear it kind of like in the mist break into type 2 a little bit. And then we hear the drum beat and crowd and shoot. I'm like, what are they? why wouldn't they do this here, where they are? No one, we don't care. Like, we're in for it all, and they definitely gave us the goods for sure.
Oh, definitely. And they're not done yet, because they closed the whole show with Backwards Down the Number Line, which I thought this was the height of the international Phish ripcord crisis, where the phrase ripcord became very trendy. Anytime that Backwards Down the Number Line followed up or interrupted, I guess one could say, a good jam or a good song. So for the record, this is not a ripcord. They didn't play it in the middle of the Reba jam, but I would guess that there is a significant amount of people that maybe started walking toward the back or started slowly looking at the exits to beat traffic. I can understand why, because it would be a song. Yeah.
Traffic? It was traffic? It was no traffic?
But that's what they tell themselves, because it would take this song a few years to like assert itself as like a really good song that's going to end rocking. Like even at 4 minutes and 30 seconds where it should be building, it is kind of limp. It's kind of casual, but thank goodness it does close strong, as it always does. So I can imagine this song was not popular. It was the kid not invited to the dance, but the band plays it anyway. And I'm glad they did, because now it's always the strong song that it probably always was if we went back and listened to 2009 and 2010.
For me, this was one of those songs that took me a while to get into, but I love the guitar line that Trey had. And I love to play this song kind of like fast forward, like that part, and it feels like it's like very heartfelt from him coming. And you know, to put it kind of like the last song on the show, it was I was all in, and to look back, it was, if I had to write a set list, maybe the only thing I would have put in there was REM. But besides that, all the rest, it was great. I got some songs I never thought I would hear ever, and I got 3, I'll say. So I won't. Yeah, but it was great. It was great. I had a blast, and you know, to walk out, and you know, the parking lot was and it was like a very, compared to what it is, subdued parking lot, which was wonderful. You didn't hear any
Right.
at the end of it, which I love it, but it was great. It was great, and you walk out, and you know, it's a tiny city, and back to the hotel, had some beers, chilled out. It was wonderful. Yeah, it was fun, a blast.
Well, Jordan, thank you so much for preparing so well, for suggesting a show and from a tour, as we mentioned at the very beginning, that is underrepresented and under-discussed. So thanks for taking us back to, I won't call it a forgotten time by any stretch, but a time that maybe some listeners to this podcast may not know as much about. So I appreciate you coming with such memories, with such great stories.
Wonderful.
And
Love it.
right on point. So thank you.
Love it. Love it. I think I sent you some pictures. Hopefully somehow you could let other people see how tiny this place was. I think those are the only 2 that I could find, but it kind of gives you a good look into the spot that they play now, which is, I mean, like a quarter the size of MSG, I think. So it was great, but we had a blast, and I had a blast. So thank you for this, and I look forward to listening to more podcasts, more shows, and I look forward to speaking soon for sure.
And that's it for today's conversation with Jordan Gundeck. Jordan and I did a lot of reminiscing during today's conversation, so we got to make sure we got everything correct.
Attendance bias fact check.
First, Jordan is correct with his days of the week. His first show, December 9th, 1997, at the Bryce Jordan Center at Penn State University, was indeed on a Tuesday night. The smallest venue Jordan has seen Phish play live is the Glens Falls Civic Center. That show was played on October 23, 2013. They opened with the Beatles' Back in the USSR and closed the encore with While My Guitar Gently Weeps as a nod to their 1994 Halloween show, which was played in the same venue in 1994. Jordan mentions the quote infamous show at Brendan Byrne Arena on February 24th, 2003. I've listened to the show and I know a lot of people who were there. On paper, it looks great to have a strong set list and a sit-in from blues legend B.B. King. But the 3-song sit-in is long, it's repetitive, and it's somewhat boring with no one, neither King nor Phish, showing off what they can do or taking the lead. In the same part of the conversation, Jordan mentions that the biggest venue he's been to for Phish is probably Watkins Glen or, in his words, quote, up in Maine. He's referring to the Loring Air Force Base. Since it's not technically a concert venue, there is no official listed concert capacity for Loring, but listed reports have said that up to 70,000 fans attended the Great Went in 1997. From the pictures I've seen, I'd believe it. The fall 2010 show at what was called the Verizon Wireless Amphitheater in Manchester, New Hampshire, on October 26, 2010, was literally the 3rd episode of Attendance Bias with guest Donnie B. If you want to give it a listen, you'll have to scroll way back in the episode queue. I do recommend listening to both the Attendance Bias episode and the show itself. The fall 2010 tour closed with Halloween in Atlantic City, but I also mentioned the night before, October 30th, 2010, where the band covered and teased multiple Led Zeppelin songs to throw off the crowd as to what the Halloween cover album would be. The show was broken down on Attendance Bias with the amazing Karina Reichman. Just as an aside, the Rolling Stones Voodoo Lounge Tour hit Giant Stadium on August 14th, 1994. When discussing rarities and big-time breakouts, Destiny Unbound debuted on September 14th, 1990 at The Living Room in Providence, and Fuck Your Face debuted on April 29th, 1987 at Nectar's in Vermont. And finally, the song Light is credited as an Anastasio Marshall composition. That's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Jordan for joining me today, Phish.net for their help with the extensive fact check, Phish.in for the multiple recordings used in today's episode, and of course the Mockingbird Foundation for everything they do. If you enjoy Attendance Bias, please support the show. You can leave a rating and a review of it on your favorite podcast app. You can follow Attendance Bias on social media, and you can go to www.buymeacoffee.com/attendance bias and donate anything you can to keep the production going. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Attendance Bias.